my name is Leanne Angerman and I'm the Assistant Director of the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. This training video will cover the Inspector Kit. And the first thing you need to know is that the voting machines and all of the ADA equipment will be delivered by professional movers to the polling location prior to Election Day. So when you arrive to set up, that equipment will already be there. The Inspector Kit is picked up by the inspector on the Saturday before the election. So the first thing the inspector will need to do is verify the precinct number and make sure that you have the correct precinct number for Election Day. Once you get home, you're going to want to verify all of the contents to make sure that you have everything that you need for Election Day. The inspector is charged with running the precinct on Election Day and making sure everything runs smoothly. When you verify the contents of the bag, the first thing you're going to look for is the inspector envelope. The inspector envelope contains the list of the poll workers. You'll have two sheets, one for the Democrats and one for the Republicans. You're going to want to make sure that you call all of the poll workers to go with you for a setup, or at least invite them to come with you for the setup. This is not about whether or not you can complete the setup by yourself. This is truly a bipartisan effort, and it's about making sure all the poll workers are comfortable with the setup once the election is ready to start on Tuesday morning. So you'll get your poll worker information out of your inspector envelope. It will also contain your passcodes. So the passcodes for the poll pad and the voting machine will be in this envelope, so you're going to make sure you keep this and you take it back with you on Election Day to the polling location. The next information you will find in your inspector kit are the posting materials. So you will have a sample ballot, you will have voting instructions for the machine, the Indiana Voters Bill of Rights, and your Vote Here posting sign for the front door of the polling location. Please take some tape with you so you can adhere these signs to the doors and the walls. Just please make sure that they are visible to all the voters coming in and they are easily readable. You will also have some training materials. You will have the Election Day Handbook, which has a lot of step-by-step information in it, just some detailed information about how to run the polls, so make sure that that's available to you on Election Day so you can refer back to it. The poll worker training guide, the instructions for the voting machine, all of these materials are ready for you on Election Day. Just make sure that you check the kit for them. You will have the 50-foot rope to set up the chute for the polling location. This is a very important part of each precinct. You're going to want to make sure that this is set up at every precinct. The 50-foot rope starts at the door to the room that the voting machines are in. So if you're in an interior room, that the chute may extend through the hallway, but if you're in a building where the front door opens into the room where the voting machines are, then it will extend outside. So you can tie the end of it to a chair or something else. Just make sure that it's extended 50 feet and clearly marked for the voters and clearly marked for any campaign workers that are working outside of the polling location. You will find 3 sets of cards, or 3 cards in your inspector kit. You will have the green start card, the blue voting card for the judges to use with the machines, and the red tally card. The red tally cards do not get used until the end of the day. After 6 p.m., after all of the voters have voted, the tally card is inserted into the machines. You'll have a separate training video on that process, but this is what comes back to the county that is used for us to get all of the tallies from the machines for your election results. You will have your jetpack or MiFi. In some locations you could have a little bit larger version called a Cradle Point. Your iPad printer and your iPad. Your iPad will be sealed in a separate envelope, in a white envelope for you to open once you get to the polling location. You will have your iPad stand with your stylus. It's in 3 pieces, so you'll need to put the stand together as soon as you arrive and make sure that everything is functional and working properly. You will have the inspector book in your kit. This is a book full of all of your forms. So this will have your oath as well as many different forms that you might need throughout Election Day. There is a list of the form names and the form descriptions on the book, so make sure that you keep this handy throughout the entire day. You will also have a list of registered voters. For the list of registered voters, please remember this is for backup purposes only. You are not to use this instead of signing people in on the poll pad. People need to be signing in on the poll pad, but in the event that someone's not in the poll pad and you can't get a hold of someone in the office, you need to make that your first phone call. But in the event that you're not able to find any help or find someone in a poll pad, you can use this list to refer to find out if someone is registered in that precinct. So please note that the inspector book, as well as the list of registered voters, the covers may be in different colors. We typically change them from election to election, so they may be in any number of colors when you receive them. Please make sure that you take with you to the polling location your meals for the day. It's a long day, so please take plenty of drinks and snacks. Sometimes that is provided for you, sometimes it is not. So please take enough with you to provide for the day, and then if there is something else brought in, then you have it if you would like it, or you can certainly pass for that. Make sure that you have tape so you can secure the posting materials to the walls or to the door. And anything else you might find helpful to get through the very long day of election day. So just have that with you. Verify the contents of your kit. You will also find your provisional ballot bag, which is a red cloth bag that contains the instructions and all the materials for your provisional ballots. This is a sealed bag. So if the seal is not broken, then when we get this kit back, we understand that you have not used provisional ballots throughout the day. If the seal is broken, we know that you have gained entry into the bag and that it indicates that you have probably used provisional ballots on that day. So if that seal is broken, go ahead and leave it open and we'll know to check that kit to see if there are any provisional ballots. You will also find an envelope for emergency ballots. Please remember, emergency ballots are only to be used in the event of a complete loss of power. So if you need to use the emergency envelopes, again, the instructions are on it. The ballots are inside the envelope, and you will be able to access those if you need them. If you do not need them, please leave the envelope sealed so we know that they were not needed. That should be everything that should be in your inspector kit. There should be a few more supplies, but if you're missing any of these essential pieces, please call the office right away so we can make arrangements to get you all of the equipment that you need. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go over the material in your black bag as far as the actual equipment for the voting machines and the iPads. So first, of course, we have the iPad itself. Okay, now normally that'll be in an envelope with a label on it with your precinct, and also have the iPad number on there. Okay, you have the iPad printer. That has the matching number for the iPad. So if you have multiple iPads and printers, make sure you match them out correctly. The power supply for the iPad printer, we label iPad printer. And it's 2 parts, 3-prong, goes together one way. And also it should be plugged in the back of the printer here. If not, the square part goes up, and it's also 3-prong, so make sure you got it the right way. And then there's the on-off on the side. Okay, if it's plugged in, it should have a green light. Okay, now we have the hotspots and Cradle point. We have one or the other generally. Hotspot will be either in a black case like this or a white one, small box. Okay. Cradle point's a bit larger. It's for multiple precincts, or if you have bad reception in your area. And it's got antennas, but there's a little instruction sheet inside, so you can see how to put it together. We also have the stand for the iPads in there. Okay, you've got the base, and what we call the stem. Stem just goes into the base, slides in. Okay, we've got the iPad holder itself. There's these 2 yellow buttons on the side. Just squeeze in, put it in, make sure it snaps in place. Okay, you can tilt it, put the iPad in, just make sure the camera matches the little hole there. And then you have the ID tray for person's photo ID, It slides in on the side. Okay. So now we also have the Infinity printer. Okay, it's got the data cable which plugs into the back of the machine. Okay, you have to plug this printer into the voting machine. And that power supply, which we also label. Okay, it plugs into the back here. And when it's powered on, you have a green light in the front. There should be a green light on the top, or on line. A little power button on the side, make sure that's to the back, that's on. If this light on top is red, you just hit this button, it turns green. Okay, so then we've got the double talk and the headphones. Now this is for visually impaired. The key with this is you want to plug it into the voting machine before you put in the vote card. Okay, you plug it in, it'll say double talk ready. You plug in the headphones, because of course you don't want other people to hear what the person's voting. The other thing is with it though, the person that's voting will have to press each button twice. The first time, it tells them what is in that area. For example, John Smith for president not selected. They hit the button again, they'll say John Smith for president selected. Okay, they have to go through all the pages that way. Okay. Now we have the rope for your chute. Okay, that's generally from the entrance of your polling location out 50 feet. You have the stylus with the stickers. Okay, they should be in a baggie together. You have the power strips. We're hoping to give everyone 3 this election, so you have plenty of power. If you have multiple printers, you might have 4. Okay. We have the extenders for your handicap voting machine. Now, generally that machine has a handicap sticker on it or a tag, and it's to extend the front legs so a wheelchair can access the voting machine. Now sometimes a chair is still too big or wide, so then you can take the machine out of the case and set it in their lap. Okay. You've got extra rolls of paper for your printers. The rolls should be full in the printers already, but just in case, we have some extra rolls in case of an emergency. Okay, now we'll go through the ADA real quick. You might have a sign like this, plastic, so there's a little cap on the base. If you want to fill it with water, or if you got a little rock, put some weight on it. Okay, to designate handicap parking spots. We also might provide a cone for curbside parking for handicap. Everyone will have one of these route of travel signs for their location. Okay, this is designate the handicap parking or the handicap entrance that's closest to your room, especially large areas like churches and schools. If you have a step or two to your location, take the bag down. We'll have what we call a suitcase ramp. Okay, it folds up. If you have a couple inch lip, we'll have a smaller ramp provided for you. Okay. And that concludes this segment. Okay, now we're going to go over the assembly of the voting machine. First thing you want to do is check the luggage tag to make sure it's the right precinct. Especially if you have multiple precincts in your location, you want to make sure you have the right machines. Okay. You'll want to open up the case. Okay. Open up the privacy curtains. Take out the voting machine. The voting machine itself, you have the kickstand on the back, just put the machine at an angle, okay, to cut down on glare. And try not to put it under fluorescent lights, because that could also cause glare, even with the kickstand. On the top of the machine, you have the on-off switch, you have where the power supply plugs in, it's a round hole, and then next to that is where you plug in your Infinity printer or your double talk. Okay, set that off to the side, get out your power supply. Power supply is in a compartment directly behind the machine. Now it's two pieces, also, like the printers. See, make sure it's three-pronged, only goes one way, make sure that's snug, okay? We also provide an adapter for three-prong to two-prong, in case you have older plugs at your location, okay? So now you want to get out the legs, close the flap, the power supply, close the side curtains. Get out the legs. Okay. Set them off to the side. Close the case back up. Of course, make sure you close those flaps as well. Lock it. Turn it over onto its top to put the legs in. Now these legs have a bungee cord in the middle. You just straighten them out, let them come together. And when you put them in, you want to make sure they go in at an angle, okay? And try to put them in all the way down at the bottom of the hole. And give them a little twist at the end. That helps to keep them in place. Okay, now you want to put it on its legs. Turn it. Okay. Now we'll turn it around. Okay. You can kick the legs out a little bit to give it more stability. Now we will mention, if you have extra tables at your polling location, use the tables so you don't have to mess with the legs. It makes it a lot easier for you. Okay, so open the case back up. Open the privacy curtains again. As you'll see, like this case, there's a little slot for the privacy curtain. Sometimes there's a little groove underneath to slide the curtain into. Okay, so you get it lined up, push it in. Okay, that's how you set up the case. You want to get your voting machine, set it in with the kickstand. Now with your power supply, we recommend running it between the privacy curtain and the top of the case. Okay, that way the cords stay out of the way of the voter, and of course it plugs into the top. Okay, now we're going to go over actually starting the machine on Monday once you have it set up, power on to it. First thing you want to do is hit the red cast vote button, check your date, your time, precinct name, votes recorded 0. It goes off eventually. You can hit the button again if you didn't catch it all. You want to get your green start card out, the arrow, put it in, put in your code, hit done. Now, Monday you want to go to show ballot and print 0 proof. So go to show ballot, you want to make sure all the candidates' names and races match. You want to start at the top. And of course, since this is a primary, Democrat and Republican, start at the top one of that as well. I want to go through all the pages. Match everything up. The last page, you hit the red cast vote button, takes you back to the menu. You want to do that for every precinct, every selection, Republican, Democrat. Now, you want to plug in your printer to print the 0 proof to make sure your printer works for Tuesday morning. So you print 0 proof, you hit print, it'll start printing. Once it's done printing, it'll ask, did it print correctly? Yes or no? You hit yes. Okay. And that's it for Monday. Take your green start card out. If you're in an unsecure location though, we do suggest you break it back down, lock it back up. Okay. Tuesday morning, basically the same thing. Get your green start card out again, put it in, put in your code, hit done. Now Tuesday morning, you have to print a zero proof before you can start the election. So again, if your printer plugged in, hit print zero proof, print, it'll print out. Once it's done printing, it'll ask, did it print correctly, yes or no? You hit yes. Then you want to start the election. You hit start election, then start. It will change to mode voting enabled. So now you know you're ready to start voting. Remove card to continue. Take out the green start card. Every voter, you have to put in the blue vote card. So blue vote card goes in. Again, if you have multiple precincts, select the precinct, which is at the bottom of their printout. Make sure it matches. Select the precinct. Select what they declared, Democrat or Republican. Then you can take the card out and the person can vote. They have to make at least one selection on the ballot somewhere. Doesn't matter for who, they can skip people if they want. It is not a touch screen. They actually have to press the buttons and go through all the pages. Next page, last page will say confirm vote. They hit that. It'll tell them they can go back and review it if they want. If they're sure they made all the selections they want, they have to press the red cast vote button. The machine will tell them thank you, your vote's been recorded. So judges especially, you want to make sure to tell the voters that the machine will tell you thank you when you're done. So now we're going to go over auditing. Throughout the day, you have to audit your voting machines with your iPads and make sure your numbers match. Generally it's about every 2 hours. There's a form that you have to fill out that the state requires. So what you do, no cards in the machine, just hit the red cast vote button and you'll have at the bottom votes recorded 22, say. Go to the next machine, same thing, hit the red cast vote button, it'll say votes recorded 23. So you have 45 votes. Go to your iPad. Your iPad will have check-ins. That says 45. You're good to go. Just write on the form 45 on the machines, 45 on the iPad. Now you might have an issue where someone comes in, signs in the iPad, and they have to leave before voting on the machine. That's fine, they can leave, but they can't come back unless they're a first responder. Police, EMT, something like that. They are allowed to come back. But anyone else, once they sign into the iPad, they leave, they cannot come back to the voting machine. That'll mess up your count, but you want to add that onto that form from the state so you know that your count is going to be off. Okay, now we're going to go over actually starting the machine on Monday. Once you have it set up, power on to it. Once you have everything set up for Monday, first thing you want to do is hit the red cast vote button. Check your date, your time, precinct name. Now if you have multiple precincts on your machine, it'll say multiple. Just hit the button again if it goes dark. Your votes recorded 0. Then you want to get your green start card out, put it in the machine, put in your code. Now you want to go to show ballot, And again, if you have multiple precincts, select the first ballot. Just go through all the pages to make sure that everything matches your sample ballot that you'll have in your bag. Last page, there'll be nothing until you go forward. So hit the red cast vote button. It'll take you back to the menu. And go to show ballot again. If you have multiple precincts, select the second precinct. Same thing. Go through all the pages. Make sure everything matches your sample ballot for that precinct. Hit the red cast vote button at the last page. Now you want to plug in your printer. Hit print zero proof and print, just to make sure your printer works correctly Monday so you don't have an issue Tuesday morning. Now, once it's done printing, you'll see it'll ask you, did report print correctly, yes or no? You hit yes, takes you back to the menu, and that's it for Monday. Take your green card out, you can leave it set up, or you can unplug it and put it away, depending on your location. If you're in an unsecure location, though, we do suggest you break it back down, lock it back up. Okay. Tuesday morning, basically the same thing. Get your green star card out again, put it in, put in your code. Now Tuesday morning, you must print a zero proof before you start the election. The machine will stop you if you just try to start the election. So you hit print zero proof, hit print. When it's done printing, it'll say did report print correctly, yes or no, hit yes. Now you can start election, hit start, start again. Okay, now it says mode voting enabled, remove card to continue. Take out your green start card, shouldn't need it the rest of the day. So now for each voter, you have the blue vote card. Put the blue vote card in, color facing you. If you have multiple precincts, select their precinct, which would be on the bottom of their receipt. Okay, it'll tell you remove vote card. Take the vote card out, the ballot will come up. Now again, when you put the vote card in, give it a couple seconds for it to acknowledge the vote card. Same thing when you take it out, give it a couple seconds. Okay, now, you also see it as the precinct name here. If you have multiple precincts, it'll tell you the name of the precinct of the ballot. And you have the straight party on the right, on the first page. Unless you have a public question, then the public question will be first. Now, they have to make a selection somewhere on the ballot. Doesn't matter for who. If they want to change it, they just have to hit the X again, select someone else. And they have to press the buttons. It's not a touch screen, so they have to actually hit the buttons on the side. Again, go through all the pages. Last page will say confirm vote. They'll hit that button. You'll see the red lights will light up, but it will also tell them that they can go back and review the ballot if they want. If they hit review ballot, it goes back to the first page, and they'll have to go through all the pages again. Once they're ready to confirm their vote, they have to hit the red cast vote button. The machine will tell them, thank you, your vote's been recorded. So again, for each voter, you have to use the blue vote card. So judges especially, you want to make sure to tell the voters that the machine will tell you thank you when you're done. So now we're going to go over auditing. Throughout the day, you have to audit your voting machines with your iPads and make sure your numbers match. Generally it's about every 2 hours. There's a form that you have to fill out that the state requires. So what you do, no cards in the machine, just hit the red cast vote button and you'll have at the bottom votes recorded 22, say. Go to the next machine, same thing, hit the red cast vote button, it'll say votes recorded 23. So you have 45 votes. Go to your iPad. Your iPad will have check-ins. That says 45. You're good to go. Just write on the form 45 on the machines, 45 on the iPad. Now you might have an issue where someone comes in, signs in the iPad, and they have to leave before voting on the machine. That's fine, they can leave, but they can't come back unless they're a first responder. Police, EMT, something like that. They are allowed to come back. But anyone else, once they sign into the iPad, they leave, they cannot come back to the voting machine. That'll mess up your count, but you want to add that onto that form from the state so you know that your count is going to be off.
Hi, I'm Michelle Faven, and I'm the Director of the Lake County Board of Election and Registration. And in this segment, we're going to be going over the posting materials that are in your kit. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Voters' Bill of Rights. And this informs the voters of their rights, and in regards to maybe doing a fail-safe voting procedure, in regards to doing a provisional ballot, your photo identification, and how to get in contact with someone if you feel your voting rights have been disenfranchised. Also in here is we have a sample of what the voting machine would look like. With that, we also have the sample ballot. Now this will match with your voting machine, and it needs to match identical. You will have 3 sets of these. Post them throughout the polling place. The idea here is so that voters know exactly who and what is on the ballot prior to getting to the voting machine, so they know who they're voting for. We also have the photo identification that talks about the 4 points that the voter is going to need on their ID when they present it to the clerk, as well as a map of the voting district. Next, we're going to talk about the chute area. Also included in the kit is a 50-foot rope. That is to be stretched out at every single polling place, and it starts at the entrance to your voting room. So in some instances, this will be outside. Within this 50-foot chute area, there is no electioneering or campaigning. It is a good idea to use a chair or a railing to tie the rope to, and so that people can get in line as they enter to the polling place. If there is a line at 6 p.m., your judge will go to the end of the line, and every person that is in line is still entitled to vote.
Please make sure you post your Vote Here sign on the exterior of the building for the voters to see as they approach. You will want to come out at the beginning of the poll day at 6 a.m. and announce the polls open, and again at 6 p.m. to announce the polls closing.
Hi, my name is Joel Rodriguez. I am the Registration Administrator for the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. Today I'm going to be showing you the poll pad assembly for the clerks on Election Day. In your black bag you will have your iPad, which will be in a white envelope, which will not only have the number of the precinct number as well as the iPad number. You then tear it off, and you will then have your iPad ready. You also, in the bag, would have your ID tray, which comes with the base, your stem, as well as your iPad tray. Now, placing this iPad tray, you have to make sure that you press the 2 side buttons here in, and your tray will lock in place. Next, you have your ID stand, which also comes with your stylus. You slide it along the tray, and it's all assembled. Also in your bag, you have your iPad printer. Now, your iPad printer there's a number on the top of your iPad printer which should match the number on your iPad. Next, we have the MiFi or Jetpack. There is a power button at the top. If you hold the button for 3 seconds, you will see the MiFi pop up. That's indicating that the MiFi is powering on. Next, you're going to look at, on the upper left and right hand corners, you have your signal strength as well as your battery power life. So on the signal strength, we want at least 2 bars on your MiFi in order to get a great signal for election day. So if you walk it around the room, and if you're near a window, if you get that 2 bars, just kind of place it there and pretty much leave it there for the rest of the election. Precincts that need a stronger signal will receive a Cradle point instead of a MiFi. And to assemble a Cradle point, they do come with four pedals. If you place your pedal and twist, and if it doesn't fit, it's because it's on the wrong side. So make sure that your pedals do fit the groove and you place it upwards in order to hold it. And I'll go ahead and twist this one here for you. There we go. You plug it in and you're ready to go. Next we have our printer. On the top of the iPad printer, you have a number which should match your iPad number at the front. Okay? The first thing you want to do is make sure that the connection of the power cables are connected, including the iPad printer. There is a second cable which needs to connect to the box and then along to your outlet. Once you've done that, you will then power on your printer. You'll see a green indicator light to show that the printer is powered on. If your clerks have any questions with regards to the assembly, pull out the Get Started guide and have them look it over. It has all the information you need regarding your poll pad as well as the assembly that you see here. Okay, so you have all 3 of your assemblies in front for the clerk on election day. The first item you're going to turn on is going to be your MiFi or Jetpack. The next thing you want to turn on is going to be your iPad printer. Once you've done these 2, you then can go to your poll pad, and on the upper left hand side there's a little button there. Just hold that button until you see the Apple logo, and that's indicating that the iPad is powering on as well. Once you turn on the poll pad, you will then click the letter P, which is on the bottom center of your screen. Here you have the number of check-ins, which will be 0. If you're turning on the poll pad for the first time, click Get Started. Here you have a Republican sign-in, and you also have a Democratic sign-in. Keep in mind that the Republican and Democratic password and username will be in your inspector handbook. On this page you have 2 sections. You have scan barcode as well as manual entry. Once the voter information has popped up, you will then ask the voter if the address has changed or unchanged. You will click, if the voter has changed their address, you will then click Change. You will then supply the voter with a VRG 412 and a VRG 11 form. Once the forms are completed, the voter will then continue and click Accept. On this screen, you will notice there's the party that they would have to declare, Democrat or Republican. Once they declare their party, they click Accept. The voter will then sign, click Done Signing, and once they've done signing, can then look at both signature captures from prior elections as well as the present. Click Submit. A receipt will then print out, and that receipt will then go to the judge, who will take the voter to the machine to vote. If the voter's driver's license or state ID does not scan, go ahead and click Manual Entry. You're able to pull the voter up by their last name and first name. For example, 3 letters of their last name, 3 letters of their first name, click Search. Here you're able to scroll up and down until you find a voter. Once you've located the voter, you will then click on that person. Again, you'll ask the voter if his address has changed or unchanged. If the address has not changed, go ahead and click Address Unchanged. In this case, the voter will then view his address, click Accept. They will have to declare Democrat or Republican for the primary election. They will then click Accept. The voter will then sign, and once they click Done Signing, the clerk can then take the poll pad and verify the two signature captures. If they match, they go ahead and click Submit, and in this case, they have been successfully entered. A receipt will then print out on the printer, which they will then give to the judge. The judge will then take the voter to the machine to vote.
This video is going over the encoders for any combined precincts, which are precincts that have multiple precincts on their voting machines. So, first thing you want to do is plug in the encoder into the side where the power plugs into the iPad. Now, throughout the day, you will need power because the encoder does use more. You'll have to use these cords we provide because the encoder does not use Apple for its power. You will still have to use the Apple plug from your box for the USB side. And then you just plug it into the bottom. Make sure to gently plug it in and get it in right. Okay? Now, you'll bring up your poll pad app. Hit Get Started. And you have to put in your password. Once you put in your password, you'll see you have the scan barcode and manual entry. So, just like normal, hit scan barcode, put their ID in. Want to make sure there's no glare on the license. Okay, select that voter. Address unchanged. If it's unchanged, make sure they have the correct address again. Hit accept. The voter will sign in. Done signing. Pair signatures, again shows the information. Hit submit. Now it asks for the vote card to encode it. So you'll have your vote cards. To encode it, you will turn it to where the metal contact is facing you. Gently put it into the slot on the side. You'll see it turn blue. Then acknowledge the card. Then you'll hit create card at the top. You'll create the card, print the receipt. You'll see that person is checked in. So you want to keep the card and receipt together for that voter so the judge can then put them into the voting machine. When the judge puts them in the voting machine, put the vote card in with the blue facing you into the voting machine. Wait till the machine acknowledges it. Then take the vote card out and the ballot will come up for the voter. And it's the same with manual entry. You'll find person, last name in the first box, first name in the last box. Search. Select the voter. Make sure their information matches their license. Address unchanged. Everything matches, they agree. Hit accept. They'll sign in. Done signing. Compare signature. Information is the same. Hit submit. Again, asks you to create the card. So you have your blue vote card. Metal part facing you. Gently into the side. Give it a second or two to acknowledge the card. Again, blue there. Precinct there. Hit create card. Says that person is checked in. Take the receipt. Remove the card. And head to the voting machine. Now, in case the card does not encode correctly, we have what we're going to call a blank master card. And we'll have on here, do not encode this card. Do not put this card in the encoder. This is for manual entry only. Open the envelope, take out that vote card. You'll insert into the voting machine, and you'll have to manually select the precinct for that voter. Once you've selected the precinct, then you'll take the vote card out, and the voter can vote. Then put this card immediately back into this envelope, because again, it's not to be used unless you have to use manual entry on the voting machine. Otherwise, you use the encoder throughout the day as normal.
Hi, I'm Michelle Fayman, and I'm the Director of the Lake County Board of Election and Registration. And the segment that we're going to talk about today is the forms book and what it's used for on election day. So the first thing that is on here is on the cover. It's going to tell you the quantity of each form, the form name, and the actual form number, PRE1 and so forth. One thing I like to do is I like to put tabs on here to kind of help me find them quicker on election day. So the very first thing we have is the oath. The oath for the inspector, judges, and the clerks will sign off on an oath prior to election day. Also part of that series is the certificate of ballot agreement, and that's going to show that you have matched up your ballot on your voting machine with the sample ballots that are in your kit. It will also attest to that your electronic poll book is at 0, that no one has been entered yet. You will also record the opening and closing of the polls. So at 6 a.m. you will state that you opened on time, and at the end of the day you will state what time you closed. Another section indicates how many people were in line at 6 a.m., at 12:30 in the afternoon, and at 6 p.m. Just simply a number of how many people were in line. The next thing we come across is the Affidavit of Assistance, and it's a two-part form. The first part is for an affidavit of the voter can designate anyone they choose to assist them. Now, it cannot be their employer, it cannot be a union agent also. And in here, if a person has disabilities or cannot read and write this English language, they can have anyone they choose assist them. They simply fill out this form and again, leave it in the forms book. That voter would then be able to go into the voting machine and assist the voter. Now, if the voter does not bring someone with them, then it would be the two judges could go in and assist them. This form is filled out prior to entry into the voting booth. The next thing we have is a PRE5. PRE5 is if a voter has applied for an absentee ballot and never received it. On the iPad, it's going to show that one was issued to them. The voter can fill out this form attesting to that they never received it, and then they would be eligible to vote on the voting machine. Now, voters can also bring in their ballot and forfeit it to you as the inspector, and then they could also vote. But if they never received it and they don't have it with them, they need to fill out the PRE5 attesting that they never received it. The next form is the PRE7 And that's for if one of your poll workers was disqualified. And one of the reasons why they could be disqualified, and as they're taking the oath, and it says I'm not related to someone on the ballot, they might go, oh, my cousin's running, and they would be disqualified. So this is the form that you would fill out to disqualify them. After you disqualify them, you're going to want to appoint a new person, which would be the very next form, the PRE8. In this case, you would move up the highest ranking. You would move them up in the order of their rank. So inspector, judges, and the clerks. So if the judge was disqualified, the clerk would move to the judge's position, and then you would hire the next available voter who is qualified to serve. And in this case, they would fill out the replacement form. You would also have them sign the oath. Also make sure they go on the pay claim. Next form after that is the PRE10. And this is an affidavit indicating if you were to use ballot cards for some reason. So in other words, if you're using emergency ballots, you are going to attest that you have sealed them in the envelope and close them and sign off on it, and that you did not permit anyone else to have access to it. Next form is the PRE16, which is the audit. And there's a whole nother section in videos that will really go into detail on here. But what this does is it's matching up to make sure at any given time during the day that your voting machine matches your iPad. And they should always match. Some of the reasons why they may not match, though, is our next form, which is the Pre-19. And this is used for our first responders. So your police officers, your firefighters, your EMS personnel, and so forth. Say they're in the polling place and they've already signed in on the iPad and get called out on an emergency call prior to going to the voting machine. These are the only individuals that are allowed to re-enter if they did not get to cast their vote. Otherwise, if you left before that, the voter left and didn't vote, you'll need to note that on the PRE16 to show that your numbers do not match. But first responders can come back if they were called on an emergency call. Next form, VRG 412. This form is used quite often during election day. And what this form does is it allows someone who is no longer at their address where they're still on the iPad listed. So when a voter signs in and they go, oh, that's not my address, this is the form we go to. It allows someone for a number of different reasons. It could be that they did not have time to change their residency within the last 30 days before the election. It could also mean they moved regardless of time, but still remained within the same county and same congressional district. And if this was a municipal election, they would have to stay in the same municipality also. And or the third category is if their address was canceled due to a countywide mailing and they've been canceled but still remain at the same address. The voter will fill this out. They will tell us their old information, old name maybe, maiden name also, their old address and their new address. They are entitled to vote one last time at your precinct where they remain on your poll list, and then we will change them after the election. As part of this series, the next form in here is the VRG 11, and this form is a brand new voter registration. So when we have them do the VRG 412, we also want the 11, and then we will move them to the correct address for the next election. So whenever someone moves, you have two forms to fill out. The last in our series is cancellation form. It's called the VRG 14. Every now and then you will find a parent or someone who comes in and says, I keep getting mail for my son or daughter who moved 20 years ago and living in another state. I want you to take them off the rolls. Well, we cannot just take someone's word for it. We need to have it in writing. So in this case, tear off one of these forms, hand it to the parent and say, please mail this to your son or daughter and return it to us, and we will happily take them off for the next election. That concludes our forms book. If you have any questions, always reach out to us.
Hi, my name is Leanne Ackerman, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. This training video will cover the audit procedure and credentials. There are a few of our audit forms in the inspector book, which comes in the inspector kit, so you'll know where to find those when the time comes. The forms are in place for your protection. Proper documentation of what has happened throughout the day on election day will help you if you do get called in front of the Board of Elections, or perhaps help you not to be able to be called in front of the Board of Elections if there are any abnormalities. So my first suggestion is document, document, document. The first and last form that you will be using on election day is the pre-1. The pre-1 form is 5 pages, including 6 steps. And part of that, you will be documenting the number of people who are in line. So make sure that you're doing that. You're doing that at 6 o'clock a.m., you're doing it at 12:30 p.m., and 6 o'clock p.m. So that is the first form that we'll use. We also have the pre-16. The pre-16 is a 2-page form, and this documents the number count between the iPad and the voting machines. Now with rare exception, those 2 numbers should be the same all day long. You could have a situation where they are acceptably off. For instance, if a first responder comes in to the polling location and signs in on the poll pad, then needs to leave to take an emergency call, they are permitted to leave after they have signed in and return to vote on the voting machine, so your numbers would be off temporarily. Please remember the first responders are the only ones who are allowed to sign in on the iPad and then leave and be permitted to return and vote on the voting machine. So throughout the day, you'll be documenting the number of votes that you have on the poll pad and the number of votes that you have on the voting machines. Please remember, if you have more than 1 poll pad or more than 1 voting machine, that you will be adding those totals together. And throughout the day, the numbers should be increasing, and it's an accumulative total. If you have any questions or any problems, you have someone that comes in to the polling location you can't find on the poll pad, immediately call the office. We have to make sure that we don't have anybody voting in that precinct, especially on the machines, that is not a registered and qualified voter in that precinct. So make sure that you're documenting that throughout the day. There are plenty of spaces. If there are any abnormalities, there are spaces just to document and write down what has happened. Extra documentation is good. That helps us as we do the audit procedure after the election to be able to determine what has happened. So we do run the numbers for every iPad and voting machine in the county. So we know exactly what the 2 numbers are for every precinct, and although for the most part those numbers are the same, there have from time to time been an abnormality. So let's just make sure that through that documentation and through just diligent hard work that we're not having our numbers be off at all. The next form that we have is the pre-9. The pre-9 is if someone comes in to vote, they sign in on the poll pad, they proceed to the voting machine, and they leave without hitting the cast vote button. In that instance, both judges, meaning both a Republican and a Democrat, will attempt to locate the person to have them return and hit that cast vote button. If the person is already gone and that's not possible, you complete the pre-9 form and both judges will hit the cast vote button together. Make sure that that is a bipartisan effort anytime you need to enter a voting booth without the voter being present, or even with the voter being present. We also have the pre-3 form. The pre-3 form is the Affidavit of Assistance. This is someone who is allowed with the voter to assist them. There are some exceptions. A boss or a union representative is not allowed to assist. If the person does not have anyone to assist them and they request assistance, both judges may complete the form and provide the assistance needed. So the security of the polls involves who's allowed inside. And there are some people who are allowed inside the polls beyond the precinct board workers, and they would all have credentials. So no one is allowed in the polls without credentials beyond the workers, who also do have credentials. So if a precinct committeeman wants to come in, even a chairman wants to come in, not without proper credentials, you need to check and make sure they have credentials. There are basically 2 types. So we have credentials that are 1 full sheet. Our mechanics, our deputy election commissioners, there are a few others that have these full sheet credentials. When they come in, they will display them to you. They will not give you a copy. They are not provided copies to hand over, but just so you're aware, you examine them, make sure that they're proper credentials, check for the date. and then allow them to do whatever business they need to do while they are there. The other type of credentials is a two-part form. So you have a top and a bottom section. They will both be filled out. If someone comes in with one of these forms, likely they will have one for each precinct. So they will keep the top, they will give you the bottom. That will go into the inspector kit. You'll return that with your supplies. But make sure that if they come in, they do have proper credentials. So anyone without credentials is not allowed in the precinct. The media will also have a two-part credential form. We typically get calls each year for photography about the media coming in and taking pictures. The media watchers may photograph the proceedings, but not if the voter objects, and they may not show how anyone voted. Now they are pretty aware of this, but just in case you have any issues, just understand they may photograph the proceedings, they can't show how they voted, and not if a voter objects. Now on the credentials between Republicans, Democrats, media, and different types of credentials, they will be different colors. So you will see kind of a rainbow of colors for each election that will be different. So that is a summary of some of the forms that we use for the audit procedures and credentialing to maintain security in the polls. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Fayman, and I'm the Director of the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration. And in this series, we're going to be talking about miscellaneous items in your kit. So one of those is going to be a list of your workers. Inside this envelope will contain all your workers for Election Day. Please call them in advance and ask them to meet you on Monday for setup of your voting machines, and also let them know what time you would like them to appear on Tuesday. Please let them know to bring a lunch or something to sustain them throughout the day. You can order food, but keep in mind the delivery individual cannot enter the polling place. In regards to payment, you will receive a separate sheet of paper that will tell you the date of when the checks will be sent out. On this sheet, we must have each of your workers complete name, address, city, state, and zip. They will mark if they have attended a training session, or in this case, watched a virtual one. They must also sign and provide us their social security number. As inspector, you will sign in a few spots. You'll sign as a worker. You will also attest to that these individuals worked throughout the day. It is important also to list on the front side the polling place so that way we can pay them. On the back side of the claim, there is one additional spot that the inspector must fill out, listing their name and address. Other items that could come up on Election Day is you may be in what we call a mega precinct or a split precinct. And what that means, in a mega, it means that under one roof, voters will still sign in under their own precinct, but then can go to any voting machine and cast a ballot. Their individual precinct will still be listed on there. And you will know that you are in one when you activate your voting machine and you see number of precincts. In this case, the voter would still sign in at the clerk's table. They would be given a receipt. And on the receipt, it spells out what precinct they are in. What I like to do is have a highlighter with me. When the voter gives this to me at the voting booth, I would highlight the precinct when I select it, and that makes sure I'm selecting the correct precinct. This is also used in split precincts, whereas in one precinct, they may have a split district, meaning there are maybe two school board districts in there. And in that case, they would have two separate ballots, so it is imperative that they get their correct ballot. Please use the highlighter. The next thing we're going to discuss is identification. And this is a book that the state elections put out, and in section 3 it talks about photo identifications if you'd like to read up on it more. But in this case, there are 4 things that we are looking for on a photo identification. One, that it has the voter's picture on it, and it should look like me. Keep in mind I may change my hair color from season to season. The name must conform with what is on the iPad. I said conform and not necessarily match. I could be listed as Michelle Fayman, but I might be listed as Shelley Fayman. I could be Michelle Renee Fayman. Any version of that must be conforming. It also has to be issued by the state of Indiana or the U.S. government, so in this case a passport would also be sufficient. and it must have an expiration date on it. The expiration is going to be no later than the last general election, which in this case will go back to 2018 general election. May not be sufficient for me to be driving on the street, but it is good enough for voting purposes. Other types of IDs that people may bring in that are not good. My work ID badge would not be sufficient. It has my picture and it has my name, but it is not issued by the state of Indiana, and it does not have an expiration date on it. So again, those 4 points are what we're looking for in regards to photo identification and are listed in the manual. Fail-safe is going to be the last thing I'm going to talk about. And fail-safe is that we want people who should be able to vote to cast a vote, even if a mistake has been made. So a fail-safe, if a voter shows up and says, my name should be in the book, it's not here, you could have them do a provisional ballot, and that will allow them to cast a vote on a paper ballot, and then the election board will search it out after the fact. It could also mean it's a certificate of error. We may have father and son with the same exact name, and we may have comboed them up. So if you call the office, we may find it, and then in that case we would issue a certificate of error, and then you would allow that voter to vote. In that instance, also keep in mind to watch your audit numbers, because they would not have been listed in the book. So I think they talk about that more in when she's talking about the audit section. So just keep that in mind. But we want to allow voters who should have the right to cast a vote. So a lot of times you're going to call us. If you can't get a hold of us, use the provisional ballot and allow them to vote. Also, if someone didn't bring their photo ID, doesn't mean they can't vote. It just means they're going to vote on a different method, being the provisional ballot. And then they can bring this out to us at a later date. And the very last thing is, we like to provide stickers for individuals showing that they have voted, and so that way it encourages more people to come out and vote. Please never attach this to a voter. We do not want any inappropriate touching. Simply give them the sticker, ask them to wear it proudly on election day, and encourage their friends to come out and vote. Thank you for attending our session.
I'm Leanne Ingerman, Assistant Director for the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration, and today we're going to be going over provisional ballots. Hi, we're just going to go over a few notes for provisional ballots. Everything that you need to do a provisional ballot is held within the red provisional bag. Provisional ballots are the fail-safe. This is what we use to resolve issues at the polling location and try to remove confrontation at the polling location. Whenever you need to do a provisional ballot, the first thing you're going to do is call the office. You're going to call the Lake County Board of Elections office in Crown Point at 219-755-3795 and talk to the staff. They may be able to resolve some of your issues just over the phone. So the most common reasons that we have to do a provisional ballot are the person is not found in the poll pad and it was not able to be resolved by staff over the phone. The second reason is that the voter was unable to provide identification or a driver's license, in which case they do have 10 days to provide that to the office for their provisional ballot to be able to be counted. Lastly, the most common reason that we have is that the voter is not a U.S. citizen. So if you need a fail-safe procedure, you're going to go to the provisional ballots and follow the steps. So the first thing we're going to do when you need to use a provisional ballot is get the provisional ballot bag from your black bag, which contains all the materials we're going to need. The first thing you will do is break the seal and open the bag. Remove all of the contents of the red bag. The first item we have is the provisional ballot booklet, which comes in the red bag, and it has all of the instructions for completing a provisional ballot, as well as sample forms for you to use while you're completing all of your paperwork, reminding you to include your initials on the secrecy envelope and on your ballot, a sign-in sheet, make sure that your voters sign, and we have the Pro 9 forms, which are the instructions for the provisional voter. Once you have all your materials ready, you will start by getting out the secrecy envelope, the sample ballot, and your ballot card. Next we have our sample ballot, which contains the numbers that the voter will use that corresponds to the ballot. We have the ballot that they will fill out. Please make sure that it is initialed by a Democrat and a Republican and includes the precinct number. And we have the secrecy envelope, which also needs to be initialed by a Democrat and a Republican, and this holds the ballot. Next, we will be looking at the envelope, which contains the Pre-4 and the Pro-2 on the back. Once you have all of the materials ready for your voter, you will begin by filling out the Pre-4 form on the envelope, as well as the Pro-2. On the Pre-4, the inspector or judge will be completing the top portion, making sure to list the reason why the provisional ballot is needed. The inspector will be signing as the notary in this case. The voter will be completing the bottom portion of the Pre-4. The voter will also be completing the top portion of the Pro-2. The bottom portion of the Pro-2 is reserved for the Board of Elections to complete, so this portion will be left blank. You will then give the voter the envelope, as well as the sample ballot, the secrecy envelope, which is where the voted card will go, the pink instruction page, and a number 2 pencil. Once the voter returns the materials to you, they will have the ballot card inside the secrecy envelope, which goes into the Pre-4/Pro-2 and sealed. You will collect the number 2 pencil, the sample ballot, and the pink instruction page. You will hold on to these for the next provisional voter. Your envelope will be placed in the red bag where staff knows to look for it. And be sure to mark on your white envelope number 1 that you have used provisional ballots by checking the yes. Thank you for all that you do. It's because of what you do that we are allowed to have clean and efficient elections.
So we're gonna go over the end of the day, 6 o'clock, polls are closed, no one's left voting at the voting machines. You get your white envelope out. Inside will be a smaller envelope. It'll have a label on the front with your tally card machine numbers, okay? Now match the machine number on the card here or on the back of the voting machine, okay? It says do not open till 6 o'clock. Please do not open until 6 o'clock. It'll be sealed. You open your envelope, take your tally cards out. Now on the back of the tally cards will also be labels with your individual machine number. So you want to match that tally card to that machine, set it on there. Get your next tally card with the machine number, set it on that machine. So you don't mix them up or double dip and tally the wrong card on the wrong machine. Okay. Once you have the cards laid out, take your tally card, the arrow facing you, put it in, put in your code, hit done, and tally. If you only have 20, it'll be quick. If you have 100, it might take a couple minutes. You want to plug in your printer, hit print tally, it'll start printing. It only prints one tally at a time. If you want more copies, each party wants their own copy, you have to just hit print tally again. Once the option comes back up, just hit print tally again, it'll keep printing. Once you're done, Now the printout, that first one comes back to us. At the bottom, there's a space for the inspector and 2 judges to sign. This goes back into your white envelope, okay? Go to the next machine, same process. Use that tally card for that machine, put in your code. This tally card, you'll have a baggie. It'll have a label on it that says tally cards only. It'll also have a label with the machine numbers, okay? So this is one of the first things they're gonna look for at the drop-off site is your tally card baggie, okay? Now again, just repeat that for each machine. Again, that first copy, the inspector and 2 judges sign, and it comes back to us at the county. Okay, now we're going to go over the disassembling of the voting machine, putting it away at the end of the day. First thing you want to do, unplug the power in the back. Okay, pull the cord out. And try to put it back where you found it, in the back of the voting machine case. Same thing with the other cords for the other devices. Try to put everything back where you found it. Sometimes we find these all over the place, different compartments and everything. Try to put them back where you got them. Take the voting machine out. Set it off to the side, chair, table. Now the side curtains, just give a little pull, close them up. Okay, you want to close the top, clamp it, flip it over onto a table. Hopefully you have one. If not, you'll have to do this on the floor. Take the legs out, pull them. Like you're putting them together, just pull them apart and fold them. Okay, you want to turn the case around, open the latches, open it up. And somebody hold the privacy curtains, the other person opens the little flaps with the legs, and you just set the legs in. Okay, and make sure to close these flaps back up. Now you can turn it back around to put the voting machine and power supply away. Just gonna put the machine away, kickstand is up this time. Open the little compartment for the power supply. You have one person wrap one side while one person wraps the other. Okay, just to make it easier for you to put them away. Close the curtains, latch it, just put the machine back with any ADA equipment you might have at your polling location, probably where you found them, whatever room you found them in. Okay, the movers will come the next day or two to come pick them up. Just leave that there.